What if the man the world saw as charming, confident, and untouchable turned out to be hiding something his own staff was too terrified to discuss? And what if the cracks that a young palace maid spotted decades ago are now splitting wide open for the entire world to see? Behind the towering walls of Buckingham Palace, a 21-year-old named Charlotte Briggs thought she had landed the opportunity of a lifetime. But it didn't take long before excitement turned into quiet confusion and then something far more unsettling. At first, it was small things. Easy to ignore. Until one moment changed the way she saw him forever. And now, as the headlines grow darker by the week, her story has taken on a whole new weight. The maid who finally spoke. Charlotte Briggs was fresh-faced and full of hope when she joined the palace staff in the mid-1990s. She thought she had stepped into a fairy tale. That feeling didn't last long. The moment her colleagues learned she had been assigned to Prince Andrew's private apartments, the atmosphere shifted. Faces fell. Voices dropped. Nobody said much, but nobody had to. She told herself people were exaggerating. After all, this was a decorated war hero. A royal. But inside those private rooms, his reputation wasn't just talk. It was lived reality. Staff knew about the tantrums, the sweary outbursts, the arrogance that could turn any ordinary moment into a humiliating ordeal. New employees were pulled aside and quietly warned, "Watch yourself, he has tantrums, he'll swear at you for nothing." What shocked Charlotte most was how normal everyone acted about it. This wasn't treated as a rare bad day. It was treated as routine. Experienced maids swapped shifts to avoid him. Others endured it in silence. Nobody challenged it. Nobody stopped it. Adults, professional, capable people were quietly terrified of one man's unpredictable moods inside one of the most powerful buildings in the world. In 2022, after years of silence, Charlotte finally said publicly what so many others had only whispered privately. She described him as horrible. Nasty. Not misunderstood. Not difficult. Nasty. Her words cut through the royal image like a blade, because this wasn't a rumor from an outsider. This was someone who had lived inside his private world. The teddy bear army. Nothing prepared Charlotte for what she discovered inside Prince Andrew's bedroom. Not a painting. Not antique furniture. Sprawled across his massive four-poster bed, occupying the center of the room like a miniature regiment, were 72 teddy bears. Not hidden. Not tucked away. Each one positioned in perfect, unyielding order. Many wore tiny sailor outfits, souvenirs from ports around the world collected during his naval service. Before Charlotte could ever touch them, she received a full day of training. She was handed laminated diagrams and instructed in the precise rules of placement. Largest bears at the back, smallest at the front. 2 favorites sat on mahogany thrones beside the bed. The rest stood in a regimented formation across the mattress. One wrong angle, one misaligned paw, and the entire display had to be redone from scratch. Every morning, Charlotte spent half an hour meticulously arranging them. Every evening, another half hour removing them in exact sequence, smaller ones stacked inside an unused fireplace in perfect size order, others placed carefully around the room. One wrong move could trigger an outburst that made the rest of the day miserable. Staff learned fast, a misplaced bear wasn't a minor annoyance. It was a dangerous error. Psychologists later pointed to what they described as classic Peter Pan syndrome. A decorated Falklands veteran, trained to lead men in life or death situations, reduced in private to enforcing precise rituals over stuffed animals. The bears weren't harmless playthings. They were instruments of control. And the staff who arranged them daily were simply extensions of that need to dominate every corner of his world. The curtain incidents. The teddy rituals captured the bizarre side of his character. The curtain incidents captured the cruel side. On multiple occasions, Andrew summoned Charlotte from 4 floors below to close curtains in a room he was already standing in. She sprinted up flights of stairs, folded the fabric just right, straightened the edges, made sure no light leaked through, only for the bell to ring again minutes later. A gap too wide. A fold slightly off. And then came the rage. The shouting was sudden. Explosive. Words nobody should ever hurl at another human being were fired across the room. A gap no wider than an inch could spark one of his infamous outbursts. Charlotte ran those stairs repeatedly, sweat on her brow, lungs burning, only to face a torrent of angry language for a task he could have completed himself in seconds. The same man who had flown dangerous missions over the Falklands could not summon the energy to pull a length of fabric. The atmosphere across his wing was described by multiple staff members as toxic. Every bell was a potential prelude to humiliation. A cushion slightly misaligned. A lamp not perfectly centered. These were minor imperfections that became volcanic events. Speaking back meant instant dismissal. So Charlotte wiped her tears, clenched her jaw, and kept working. A pattern planted in childhood. None of this appeared overnight. Long before the bears or the curtain tantrums, there was the childhood nickname Baby Grumpling, a name given by his own nanny for constant whining, sudden outbursts, and a flat refusal to accept the word no. Even as a small boy, he was unrelenting and petulant. He taunted security staff. He bullied his younger brother Edward. He expected special treatment simply for being royal. And instead of correction, the system around him adapted. Staff smoothed over his outbursts. Family members excused bad behavior as spiritedness. The rules of the palace applied to everyone except the boy who would later terrorize his maids. By the time he reached adulthood, entitlement had calcified into habit. The child who screamed in the nursery became the man who summoned staff from 4 floors away to close curtains. Baby Grumpling never disappeared. He simply acquired a larger stage, more power, and a gilded audience unable or unwilling to hold him accountable. The disastrous interview. For years, the private reality Charlotte and others endured stayed hidden. Then in 2019, he stepped in front of BBC cameras for an interview meant to restore his reputation. It became one of the most catastrophic performances in modern royal history. He claimed a medical condition prevented him from sweating. He offered a Pizza Express alibi for a critical date. His tone was flat, awkward, and startlingly disconnected from reality. The public reaction was instant and brutal. Royal patronages were withdrawn. Military titles stripped. The carefully maintained illusion of the charming, heroic prince collapsed overnight. For Charlotte Briggs, watching the fallout was a surreal mix of vindication and disbelief. Every bell that had rung for trivial tasks, every tantrum over a curtain fold, every obsessive teddy ritual, the private tyrant she had known finally met public judgment. The fall that has no floor. And then came what no one in the palace could have predicted, or perhaps, what everyone who ever served under him privately feared was always coming. On February 19, 2026, police arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor on suspicion of misconduct in public office, following weeks of revelations emerging from the Jeffrey Epstein files. NBC News: he was the first senior British royal to be arrested in almost 400 years. CNN: the arrest was reportedly linked to the latest release of the Epstein files by the U.S. Department of Justice. PBS: investigators looked into allegations that he had passed confidential government documents to Epstein while serving as a British trade envoy, a role that would have given him access to sensitive information. Al Jazeera: he was held for approximately 11 hours before being released under investigation, meaning he was neither charged nor exonerated. NBC News: King Charles III released a statement saying he had learned of the arrest with his deepest concern, and stressed that the law must take its course. CBS News: by that point, Andrew had already been stripped of his royal titles the previous October and had moved out of Royal Lodge in early February 2026, relocating temporarily to Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate. Wikipedia: he had reportedly demanded a 6-bedroom home with full staff, including a cook, housekeeper, and security, despite losing his royal titles. Fox News: even in disgrace, the entitlement remained. Geoffrey's siblings released a statement responding to the arrest. At last, today, our broken hearts have been lifted at the news that no one is above the law, not even royalty. CBS News: for Charlotte Briggs and the countless staff members who endured his private world, there is a bitter familiarity in watching all of this unfold. They saw it first. They lived it first. A man incapable of closing his own curtains. A man who demanded more care for stuffed animals than he gave to actual human beings. A man whose childhood nickname captured everything the world is only now beginning to understand. The teddy bears remain behind at Royal Lodge. The mahogany thrones sit empty. And the lessons of a man who was never once held accountable until now are finally laid bare for all to see.